Boy Scouts today announcing a name change. It's now Scouting America. They want to be more inclusive because girls are now in Boy Scouts. Here's the problem. Boy Scouts, they're a shell of what they used to be because they have lost their way. And this, I tell you what, it should be a case study in what happens when you compromise. Unfortunately, I actually think it is a prophetic message to the nation of what happens when you reject truth. This was an organization for literally over a century, stood as an entity that helped train the next generation of boys. Its whole purpose when it started was to help boys become men and eventually soldiers, to be able to defend the values that made Western civilization great. That's not what they are any longer. But again, unfortunately, I think it is a prophetic message to the entire culture. Joining me now to talk about this and much more is Meg Kilgannon, Senior Fellow for Education Studies here at the Family Research Council. And by the way, she served in the Department of Education during the Trump administration. But you were not a Boy Scout.
I was not a Boy Scout. I wasn't a Girl Scout either. We grew up in the country, and so my parents didn't think we really needed to do it.
Your thoughts on the Boy Scouts making this name change, trying to rebrand themselves after they go bankrupt, Scouting America?
Scouting America. I mean, I guess they're Scouting America for some kids to join their club because they
mean nothing anymore.
It's really sad. This is, as a Catholic, we have this issue of the altar servers that serve on the altar, and in the diocese where they only allow boys to do that, there are many boys who serve because it still means something.
Yeah.
It's important. It's important to have spaces where men do manly things and women do things that women like to do.
Let's talk about that, Meg, in the area of education. Why is it so offensive to draw a line between boys and girls?
Well, I don't know, except that the nation has come under a great cloud of confusion over if there are boys or girls. And so it's when children are going to school and saying, I think I might have been born in the wrong body and I might be a girl if they're actually a boy. And the school feels compelled to affirm them in that. I mean, obviously, there's something very, very wrong.
Can you explain that from a cultural standpoint, or can you not look? I cannot look at this issue unless I look at it including a spiritual perspective to this. God made them male and female. Jesus said that in Matthew chapter 19. I think this is the progression of rebellion against God.
And I think it really is. It is the ultimate attack of demonic forces on the human person, right? To attack a growing child. It's the very work of adolescence to form your identity, to figure out what is God's call in your life? What are you going to be when you grow up? What are you going to do with your life? To attack at your very core the fact of whether or not you're even male or female. That's truly debilitating, right? It doesn't get much more basic than that.
Well, the devil always has his helpers, and I think we saw them on Capitol Hill today.
I'm afraid we might have, yes. The hearing, Secretary Cardona's testimony was remarkable in many ways. I mean, here's a man who has done things that he was told not to do and not done things he was told to do by Congress, testifying before Congress. The Democrats were even asking him very gently about the problems that he's had with the FAFSA form for federal student loans. Congress passed the law, and they were supposed to fix that. They didn't fix it. In fact, they made it worse, very, very much worse. So he had that to account for. Then Congress and the Supreme Court said, don't forgive student loans, but he spent all of this time forgiving, canceling student debt to the tune of about $6 billion for starters, right?
Well, and he didn't answer any questions when it came came to the Title IX.
Right. He didn't get asked many questions on that, and he didn't answer any questions on that because there are so many other things going on. You have the anti-Semitism on college campuses and the riots that are happening. The national assessment scores are the lowest they've ever been in the history of the tests. There's massive absentee problem in public schools. So he's come there asking for more money, an increase in his budget.
$22 million for civil rights investigations.
Just for investigations.
What are they going to investigate since they're turning a blind eye to the rioting on campuses?
They're going to investigate whether Louisiana is enforcing this Title IX law. Because
so that's what they're going to use the money for.
That's exactly right.
But Louisiana's not alone. Don't pick on my state.
I'm happy with your state.
I am too. I am too. But they're not alone. I mean, today Arkansas filed suit against the Title IX regulations.
Right. We have at least 15 states who've filed lawsuits.
So what does that mean?
So they are hoping that the court will at least give an injunction against the enforcement of this rule, meaning that the states that are in these lawsuits, that the courts will say that, no, these don't apply to you. You don't have to
just those states?
Just those states.
So
it's possible that they could do a nationwide injunction, but it's most likely that they will enforce it against just the states involved in the lawsuit.
You might likely have mixed decisions coming from different jurisdictions, so you could have a conflict.
You could. In which case, maybe the Supreme Court would be involved.
But this could carry over into the election so that this is not resolved until after the election. Possible?
Yes, I think that's very, very much the case. And in the places, there's still the problem of the states who are doing this on their own anyway. In California and in Oregon and Washington State, they're living by the rules just like Title IX is trying to enforce on Louisiana, right? They're already doing that. So parents in those states don't have the assurance that when they send their child to school and they know his name is John when he leaves house, that he's not going to become home named Susie, right? And that, I think, is a right that should be enforced for every parent.
This is, I've run out of words to describe what this administration is doing. And they're doing it fast and furious, not to borrow a term from the previous the Obama administration, but they are pushing this very hard because they know historically if they get this through the door, rarely does it get pushed back out.
Exactly. And I think that really is never truer than the case of the Department of Education right now. They know that with the way they're handling this debt cancellation, it really cannot be undone.
Right.
It once they do this, it's done. And you and I are going to have to pay for the college loans of the people who are, have agreed to pay a loan, but then are not, in fact, going to pay it.
Meg Kilgannon, final question for you. Pray certainly is something we need to be doing constantly a lot in this administration. What else can be done?
Well, it's a big election year this year, and there are lots of things going on. There's a presidential election. There are local elections. Both of the parties are going to have their conventions. They're going to issue platforms. If you have concerns about where people stand on these issues, you should make your concerns known to people in your community.
The election, pray, vote, stand, what we say here. The 15 states, their challenges are the product of elections.
Yes.
And it's so important to be involved at the local. A lot of people think in a presidential election, they're always just thinking presidential. But these state elections are critical, especially now with attorneys general that hold administrations like this accountable.
Yes, and states, even local school board members, are so important when it comes to enforcing regulations like this, when it comes to developing the policies associated with this.
And that's the way our founders intended this in our federalist system, is to be, even the state and local providing a check on the federal.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the point is that now you really need to be engaged.
Pray.
Be engaged, pray,
vote.
Be engaged with your family, vote, take your family to the polls, and stand with.
Meg Kilgannon, always great to see you.
Good to see you,
Thanks
John.
for stopping by.